It's lesson time, right, Marek? We do,
Yeah,
hey, what can we learn from the Vegas Golden Knights and what can we learn from the Colorado Avalanche and so on and so forth as we
sure.
go down the line. I think one that stands out for me, honestly, is ownership. I mean, Bill Foley came in here guns a-blazing. We're going to win a championship within 6 years. Is one of the lessons here just how crucial ownership can be from like an aspirational standpoint when you look at Vegas and what other teams have to do to get at Vegas's level?
I think it's a great question, and I think there's a few things, and I think ownership is one. Like I mean, I did, Justin, I'm sure you did. Ailish, I'm looking over there. I'm sure you at least snickered when Bill Foley said we're going to win the Stanley Cup within 6 years. That's the goal. We all went, okay, guy. Thanks for the $500 million expansion fee. Now go sit over there and don't say anything at the Board of Governors. No one's laughing now. I think a couple of things here. I think when the book is, I think when the book is written on this era of hockey and the rise of franchise values, I think one of the things that I hope gets some significant time in a chapter, or maybe its own chapter, is how changing the expansion draft rules increase franchise values greatly. We saw it this year with Seattle. We saw it in Vegas's first year of existence, and we're seeing it right now with the Vegas Golden Knights. The way that expansion rules work now is you can be competitive right away, and that makes it really attractive to an investor. Where once upon a time, whether you were Columbus, Minnesota, Nashville, you came in. The expansion draft rules were, handcuffing, and you couldn't really, you struggled. Like that was by design. You had to struggle for a number of years before you were competitive. I remember talking to Doug McLean about it in Columbus. I said, "What did after you finished the expansion draft? What's the first thing you did?" And he said, "I went back to my office and I tried to figure out how I could trade all the players that I just drafted so I could actually start making my team." That's not true anymore. So I think one of the lessons here is one of the reasons why I think the NHL is attractive to new owners for expansion teams, and that's why we're talking about Utah, and that's why we're talking about Georgia again, and that's why we're talking about Houston and wherever else pops up, is because you can be competitive right away. The other thing, I'll tell you what, the big on ice thing that I'm taking away from the Vegas Golden Knights, and it kind of flies in the face of everything that people in the analytics era have been talking about. And I understand it because it makes a lot of sense. But when you look at Vegas, it kind of flies in the face of that and makes even more sense. And you're actually seeing this thing that I'm going to talk about play itself out with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, I'm going to bring this somehow back to the Maple Leafs. When you look at teams that are successful, we keep talking about identity and team and the whole capital T team and what it means to be part of a team. And normally we think, okay, that's got to be done through drafting and developing. That's not true for either of these two teams. I mean, the Florida Panthers have a couple of guys that were drafted and developed, Barkov, Lindell, Ekblad, but that's it. Everything else was free agency and trades. And when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, it's an expansion roster. No one's really drafted and brought through the system here. These are all trades and free agent signings. And they've used certainly their draft capital to get there. But the one thing that really stands out to me about Vegas is how they compensate and keep their bottom six. In the analytics era, the mantra about bottom six forwards specifically has been, don't reward your bottom six players for performance. Let them walk and find another one who can do the same thing for cheaper, because those players exist, whether it's on other teams, whether it's in the American Hockey League. There's a lot of bottom six players around. So don't pay the ones that you have. Go get other ones who can do the same thing. That makes sense financially. The problem is you don't end up with an identity on your team, and you end up with a sort of from a mental point of view, two tiers of your squad. There's the actual team, and then there are these players that just
like
keep
the core
on
four
shuffling through,
and others.
That's I think one of the lessons that Maple Leafs players were talking about coming out of their exit interviews. That Elliott talked about this a couple of weeks ago about too much attention with the core four, etc. And how they need to, create identity elsewhere in the lineup. And I think one of the lessons we can learn from the Vegas Golden Knights, whether it's, you look at, William Karlsson and Carrier and Watt and Kolasar and these types of people, they're compensated for their performance, not wildly compensated. Like you don't have any like $6 million bottom six players here. But they're compensated for their performance, and they've been there for a while. Like they've been there with the team for at least 3, 4, sometimes 5 seasons. And I think that we look at Vegas and we say, wow, that is a capital T team. And I think that's one of the big reasons why, because they don't just shuffle players in and out like that. Like Kelly McCrimmon, had the reputation of being like this ruthless guy, like got rid of Marc-Andre Fleury, got rid of Nate Schmidt. They're wildly popular. What's the message to the marketplace? Really, all he's doing is the same thing that any other manager does. And he brings in Eichel and he brings in Pietrangelo, and he brings in big name players. Vegas is always at least sniffing around every big league deal. But through all of it, there's been an identity that's been created there because a lot of their players have been there for a while, because if you're identified as one of those players, you're compensated and you're kept. I think that to me at least is the big takeaway from, or what the lesson is from the Vegas Golden Knights.